Hello, Resident Fam. Thank you for coming in this afternoon. My name is Shanara Johnson. You guys probably saw me before in our earlier panel events, but I am the panel supervisor for Rise Up Animation. As you probably noticed, Bobby is not here with us today. He's on vacation. So it's gonna be me and Frances here today. So Frances is gonna be our moderator. She's going to direct you guys to just remind you to answer questions in the Q&A on the bottom of Zoom, just for organization. And also she will be looking at your questions and pick which ones we should ask our panelist guests here today. So Frances, if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
So hi guys, I am a panel volunteer. My name is Frances, but people just call me Franny because I have a best friend named Frances. So Franny, I am an illustrator, a visual development artist in the Philippines, currently working as freelance and also a full-time illustrator for a studio called Friendly Foes, who mostly work on advertising and campaigns for like companies here in the Philippines. But slowly we're delving more into developing our own stories, which is a feature film, short film, and a TV show. So yeah, so that's me. Hi guys, welcome to the Union Bound panel.
Yay, that's an awesome. See, you're fine. All right, and so I'm going to let you, Teri and Mairghread, introduce yourself. So go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Okay, I'll go first.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm Teri Hendrich Cusumano, and I grew up here in Los Angeles County and went to Art Center College of Design, studying illustration and fine art. I actually didn't think I would get into animation, but I just needed work that paid well. And kind of that's how I found my way into the industry. And I currently work as a color supervisor at Bento Box on a new show for Fox called Cropopolis. And for those who don't know, like a color supervisor oversees the work of color designers and background painters. So that's kind of my specialty. And then when I'm not animating, I also kind of create my own art and paintings. That's me.
Well, I guess I'm next. Hi, everyone. I'm Mairghread Scott. I am the chair of the Writers Craft Committee over at 839, also known as the Animation Guild. I am a writer, and I'm currently serving as the EP and showrunner on the upcoming Netflix show Dragon Age Absolution, as well as the EP, although there it's head writer on an unannounced Marvel show. So I went to college at NYU for dramatic writing, as they call it, and moved out to LA, and here we are.
Well, okay, that's cool. And reading about your guys' careers, like it seems like you've been working in the industry for a long time, almost close to a decade, which is pretty awesome. So I hope I can get to that level one day, because I'm changing careers to get into animation. I work in customer service, and now I want to be a storyboard artist. So tell me, could you describe what it was like in the beginning when you was working in animation? Like, what was it like?
I guess I'll start. My first animation job was in 2007, and I kind of feel like I got in like the back door because it happened to be a production where the creator really wanted people who didn't know anything about animation, because he wanted like a naive look to it. And it was not a union production, so I ended up kind of getting thrown into this unique experience where I was kind of hired as just an artist in the art department, and so I would like involved with any kind of visual part of it, from like, you know, drawing the characters' backgrounds, coloring, and like doing key poses and all this stuff. so from that experience, I kind of was like, oh, okay, like I guess maybe I like this part of the process a little more. Yeah, after that experience, then I had like my first union job, which was at Titmouse on a Disney XD show called Randy Cunningham. So yeah, that was like a little bit more different experience. So yeah, I've been working in animation like almost 14 years, but like in the union like 10 years.
That's cool. That's cool. I think I recall watching Randy Cunningham to babysit my little brother and sister when I was a kid. So, so you have provided their entertainment. So thank you. And what about you, Mairghread? How was your experience in the beginning?
Yeah, so my experience was a little frustrating in the beginning, which, you know, is kind of, maybe I can give you guys some hope. So I moved out to LA. I had done a bunch of internships while I was in college in New York. I found out that meant a lot less than I would have liked it to in LA. And one of the big things was that I was just trying to get in as a PA, like literally just the lowest you could go. And I kept interviewing. And I remember interviewing at Nickelodeon, and they kept asking me back for different shows, but like I would never get the job. They'd be like, let's ask you back. And then, no, you're not qualified for this. And I was like, what the heck's going on? And it was so disheartening. But I finally got a job over at a show called Fanboy and Chum Chum. I had applied to be the script coordinator. They gave me a job as the assistant to the head writer. And I found out that actually what was happening was that I had done well in the interviews. So HR was just kind of passing me around to find a show that was the right fit. So while it was super frustrating to me, feeling like I interviewed for show after show after show for like 6 months while I was working at a receptionist at a radio station, what was actually happening was I was doing pretty well in the interviews. They were just, it's just every show is different, every need is different, you know? So it wasn't about being good enough, it was about being the right person for that show. Which actually a lot of my career is like, you're constantly trying to move up, but weirdly, like the opportunities will kind of come seemingly from the side or like laterally, like you had no idea that they were going to happen. So yeah, so keep the faith.
Yeah, and going from my own experience, since I graduated in college in 2007, and this is during the Great Recession, like you apply for multiple jobs. And for me, in my case, it was in animation and illustration. And like you will hear like recruiters say, hey, we're interested in you. And then like you hear silence and you're like, where'd everyone go? Like, hello.
I do have to say, like, on the one hand, I want to qualify, one, I have worked in this business for more than a decade, but I actually graduated from college right as the WGA went on strike. So literally the graduation speech for our department was don't cross the picket line. So I understand what it's like to like try and look for work in a bad job market.
Me and you both. All right, well, so let's see. Any questions yet? No, but
yeah.
So
we have one question here from Ala Yasin. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. So they'd like to ask what your personal approach is to networking, especially during COVID.
Yeah, COVID sucks because outside of COVID, for animation writers, the best way to network with us is to meet us at comic book conventions. Is basically normally they'll have the head writer on a panel for a show, you know, so if you see a show you like, you see a writer, you want to go up, and basically the goal is just to show the writer that you are not crazy. Like you just want to show them that like you're normal. This isn't about getting a job then, it's just about like, hey, I'm actually interested in learning more about your career or your process. Could we meet later? So like all you're trying to do is possibly get another meeting. The good news is that a lot of writers in cartoons are pretty relaxed. So like, honestly, it's not at all unusual for if the writer you want to talk to has any social media presence, just hit them up. Just hit them up on social media and just give them a clear goal of what you're looking for, which is, and if you don't know what you're looking for because you're just trying to get on someone's radar, just be like, I'd like to know more about, the industry or things like that. Like, just, it's the worst thing that people can do is continue not to hire you. You are already not working for them, so all you're trying to do is just, reach out and find someone who has the bandwidth to, maybe get some coffee or do a Zoom with. So yeah, it's kind of the best of times and the worst of times for networking.
When it comes to
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna agree that it was I guess this whole Zoom thing is an opportunity for a lot of us around the world because it's really hard to get into the industry.
When it comes to networking, like the thing that I feel has helped me the most is just being involved with the union, because like people like out of the blue will message me or whatever, and it's because they saw me whatever at a union meeting or something, and I know there are some things that are like kind of union only events, but there are other opportunities that like the portfolio reviews that are member run, where people who are new and maybe trying to get in the industry are ways kind of of networking and kind of getting your foot in the door. And also I failed to mention that I'm the chair of the color designer committee, and I've had also people reach out to me wanting to get involved even though they're not necessarily in the union yet, also because of my position, it's like, okay, like now like their name is on my radar of like, oh, okay, this person's like, interested in doing color design. As a supervisor, that's a position I kind of help hire for. So yeah, I always encourage people to somehow get involved with the union, and like that's a great way just to network.
Yes, I recall like with the Animation Guild, they do provide events with people who are not in the union. But with COVID, it kind of like, a lot of things was put on pause. Do you guys see yourselves opening up more events locally as we go along with this? Hopefully the pandemic will wane soon. But do you guys see yourselves having events in the near future?
Yeah, we just had one a couple weeks ago.
Ooh.
So we are looking to have more events and mixers, and we also, the Writers Craft Committee, we used to have a series called Fireside Chats where we would do sort of open Zoom discussions like this with writers of different types of writers. So we're hoping to try and get that back up probably next year. So
that's awesome to hear. Awesome. So I know like in the beginning, it was a little, in the beginning of your journeys in animation, it was a little rough, but then eventually you guys started to get roles. So I recall you guys said you was in the Animation Guild for almost a decade. How did you guys enter into the Animation Guild? What was the process?
Well, yeah, for me, it's just a matter of, well, I think for anyone, just getting hired onto a production that is already covered by the union. I mean, there is also the possibility of getting hired onto a non-union production and then going through the process of organizing your crew and becoming union, which I've kind of seen on the sidelines or been on the sidelines for. But yeah, for me, it was, since it was like a show for Disney, it was already like covered by the union in that scenario when I first started.
It's actually a little weird for writers, especially nowadays. The union can have a little trouble tracking down writers who freelance, because essentially the show, I don't know exactly why. I've heard it's like the shows want to turn in everything in one batch, but like because the writers dip in and out so quickly. So I actually had to go to the union after I had written a couple of episodes, and be like, hey, I want to be in the union. And they were like, yeah, great, sure. And I say this because if you don't know if you qualify to be in the union yet, you can absolutely reach out to their membership email. You can actually just email, here, I'm going to throw in the chat. It's membership@tag839, and they'll talk you through the process and if you qualify, but maybe now is not a good time for you to join the union. It's not something you have to, the union is not there to hunt you down and punish you. Like, you're accruing benefits every time you do work union, and joining the union lets you access those benefits that you've already accrued. So especially if you are getting involved in writing and you may only get like a couple of scripts a year, you don't know if it's going to be worth it, like reach out, see if you qualify, and then see if you feel like now's a good time to join in or not.
Cool. That's actually really good information, because some people, especially who are trying to get into the industry and are interested in learning more about the Animation Guild, don't necessarily know like how to enter, or do I have to work at X amount of years to join the guild, or if I work on a non-union and then work on a union, will I be penalized? So that's actually really good to hear.
So if you work, I guess just to answer a couple of those questions, one, you need 600 hours worked to join the union. And for most jobs, if you're going in every week, like the union you'll get a packet in the mail. Like, but if you're sort of freelancing sporadically or for several different shows, you might have to ask the union. Our union is not exclusive. You will never be penalized for taking non-union work, although we encourage people to call us and try and organize. And there is, for the entrance fee to join the union, because you have to get 600 hours and you also have to pay an entrance fee as well as quarterly dues. But the entrance fee, you can set up a monthly payment plan if it's too much for you up front.
Cool. And I also know too, like with the Animation Guild, they also are on the fight on trying to regulate testing to get a animation job. So fun fact, when I graduated college, back in the day, in order to get like a job in animation or even an illustration or art job in general, you would have to take a test. And a lot of the tests was, personally, for me, was very invasive. And you would think, oh, I've spent this much money to get a education as well as a portfolio, but you still want me to test. And the test is like more than 8 hours. So did you guys have to experience that in the beginning of your careers or during your careers?
Yeah. Yeah. I've taken like many tests, and yeah, I would say actually more in the middle of my career or my 10 years or whatever. Yeah, it was very frustrating, like you know, like trying to look for work and like being asked like, oh well, you need to take this test that's going to take you like almost like 3 days or more to complete. And for me, it was doing like background painting tests, and you know, and then submitting it and just like not hearing anything. There's one, I guess, I don't know, I'll not name them, but one major studio I've tested like 5 times for, and I've like never gone hired there. So it is really frustrating. So now in my position as a supervisor, like I kind of am with someone who could hand out a test, but I try not to, or you know, look for ways of like, oh, can we like just freelance this person and kind of have that be a trial run. but they're paid to do it, kind of thing. So yeah, it is improving, and luckily I haven't myself had to test in like almost 5 years. So that's
Yay.
really
Thankfully, we don't have those kind of tests, I guess, anymore around here. Like you get hired for your skill more than like a test.
Yeah, testing's pretty uncommon on the writing side. You will get sometimes asked to, pitch ideas for a show, and like if we like you, we'll give you an episode. So I guess that's kind of a test. But we are really fighting hard to get people paid for pitches. And yeah, it's sort of with writing, it's like you're either being hired freelance and they need an episode right now, so just start pitching so we can pick one, or you're going to be in a room, which just means you're going to be hired before the show is like completely set. So it's difficult to test someone on a show that doesn't quite exist yet. But I have done an enormous amount of pitching on certain shows and not gotten in, and that is socially frowned upon. but does happen sometimes. It's immensely frustrating.
Yeah,
Okay.
It is funny because I'm doing these tests and I'm like, isn't this kind of redundant? Like I'm doing the job like right now. You could just hire me.
Yeah.
But also too with going to more the present, like this for the last 2 to 3 years, well, what I remember, you guys was actually negotiating a contract recently. That's correct. So tell me about your experience.
It sucked. Negotiating contracts always sucks. The AMPTP is awful. Can't think of a nice thing to say about them. But I will say, I think the really interesting thing was, because Teri, you were new last time. We started at the same time, right? Or did you? Yeah, we were both involved in the last round of negotiation, and I think that was our first time for both of us. And then yeah, and it's sort of like the industry has changed a lot. The guild is really a lot more powerful and a lot more energized. And I feel like one of the interesting things was last time around, there was very much the feel, we negotiated for 5 days instead of the 3 days we were allotted. And that was a huge coup. And the studios, brushed off almost everything we wanted, but we got a couple of things. And this time we ended up negotiating, I think it was like a month of days spread out over, we were supposed to start negotiating in August. We started negotiating in September. We wrapped up negotiations in, Jesus, was it June?
Well, I think we started actually officially at the end of November, but it was almost, I would say,
did we start in November?
Spread over 6 months.
Yeah, it was 6 months of negotiating. And because the union just refused to leave. Like we just weren't going to give up. And they really wanted us to just kind of give up. So we got, for the writers, we got a lot more than I had hoped we would get, like, especially after the last time around. We didn't get anything like what we should have gotten or what we deserve to have. But I feel like the swing is, I feel like there's an upward trend in Tag's power and ability that I'm excited to see next time. I don't know. I walk out of every one of these ones being super angry and like, I'll get you next time, Tracy Cahill. So.
Yeah, I think the one thing that like maybe people who aren't involved in the process, like it's hard to see is just, how like unmovable the studios are and just so very entrenched in their ways. Like for me, I'm advocate for color designers, which is a like historically and present like female dominated craft, and like the studios just love to perpetuate like pay discrimination. Like they just don't want to change. They don't care if we like tell it in their face what they're doing. It's like, no, but we just love underpaying these people. So like, and you know, this is something that
they'll argue for it too. Remember, there was that point where they were like, well, we have to pay you less to help diversity.
What?
What? That was kind of how?
It was like, we care. Literally, they were like, we're offended that you think we don't care about increasing diversity in this business. Why do you think we want a pay cut for this position?
I think we like money too, so.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense at all.
So I mean, like we've been negotiating this point since 2018, and like a lot of people from the outside were like, oh, so like you got that fixed, right? And it's like, no, like this is a very like long, slow process, very similar to just politics and like trying to, you know, get the other side to move a little closer to what you would hope your like reality would be. Like,
I think the important thing that people don't realize is that especially we negotiate with several different studios. The main person we negotiate with is a group called the AMPTP, which is essentially a union of studios. But the way that they've designed their system is sort of maximum diffusion of responsibility. So the way the AMPTP works is that they all have to say yes to every point they agree to, which allows any one of them to say no to one part of a thing, and then the thing dies. And so it essentially, like, from a person-to-person stance, is really frustrating because it basically allows them to dodge any sort of moral culpability, because any one of them just needs to object to a tiny part of what you're asking for, and then they can collectively reject everything that you're asking for, and then go home and tell themselves they weren't that bad. So it's really important to understand also, we're not arguing against the heads of the studios. Like, a lot of our biggest problems negotiating against the AMPTP is that they are professional labor lawyers who don't actually really have any knowledge about the animation pipeline. So one of the big things we did last time around, and we did even more this time around, was literally just tell them what the hell we do all day and why what we're asking for makes sense. But because they're not actually in the business of making animation, they're not really in the business of saving money. They're in the business of appearing to save money to executives above them, who also in this conglomerated world often do not have a strong grasp of the animation pipeline. And so it becomes a level of sort of willful ignorance and willful intransigence when you negotiate with these people, because they can all sort of just turn half a blind eye and say, like, well, look, we know that color designers, I feel like I see this all the time with especially your guys' craft, is like, okay, well, we know it's bad, but like, if we give you, you know, a 50% raise, that looks crazy, even though that's like one person on a whole show, or a handful of people on a whole show, where money's getting wasted way more other places. You know, it's just, the optics look bad, like the money optics look bad. So a lot of what we do isn't just about negotiating, it's also, and I've seen you guys do this too as a craft, and I super admire it, it's what we do outside of negotiating to try and enforce norms with the studios, with people in the studios who actually work with us. You know, so writers pressuring to say, like, this is actually covered work, and we do need to get paid when you hand me 6 novels and tell me I need to read them by Monday to pitch you a show. Like, you're asking me to do work and I should get paid for that. Or like, I know that your craft, Teri, has been working really hard on being like, if you're in a hiring position, like, you should advocate that people need to get equal pay for equal pay, you know?
Yeah, so kind of like generally breaking this kind of cycle of overworked and underpaid um artists, basically writers, artists, and everyone like that.
Yeah, and just in the sense of like negotiating as a union is nothing like negotiating for your deal with your job. Like, and it's kind of the last, it's often you get the most stuff when it's the last step of months and years of advocating within the industry itself. And then the last domino to fall is to get it formally in the contract.
So it was actually a question by Daniel Monique, but her question also has like a follow-up of what changes are you hoping to see in the future regarding the Animation Guild contracts?
That everyone get paid like fairly, like what they're worth. Like, that would be a good start.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It's like a million things that all kind of boil down to more money. I would say the biggest thing for writers is like, look, there's another union, the WGA, that covers animation writers. And the fact that they have an infinitely better deal than we do because for reasons, you know, is like utterly disgusting and infuriating. And we're not worth half as much as someone right next door. Like it's horrible. It's so upsetting. It's so infuriating. But it also really reminds me that like the studios don't want to pay tag writers what WGA writers get because we're part of tag, and they don't want to pay the artists what WGA writers get. That's why so many WGA shows are non-union, because you can scrape the money out from the artists that you're going to have to shovel into the writer's pocket. That's how you can make that money back if you're a studio and you're a dick, which isn't to throw shade on those writers or people that work for them. You know, you do what you can. But I think the thing that makes me realize that just they try and diminish us by saying we work for kids, but it is not rocket science to figure out where the money's coming from, that every studio that's buying up the business has strong and deep animation ties, because they can pay all the artists what WGA writers make. They should be paying us residuals. Disney's still making money off movies where everyone who worked on them is dead, and they still make money every year off Snow White, off The Little Mermaid, you know, remaking The Lion King and recycling those boards shot for shot in some cases. Like, that's completely exploitative. And so the level of exploitation that the writers face, because we have an apples to apples comparison, really shines a light for me on the level of exploitation that the artists in our industry who don't necessarily have a direct apples to apples comparison face. Because that's our money that has built some of the most massive successful companies in this business. And we really deserve to get some of that back.
Yeah, I would say there's like lots of levels of inequities that, again, it seems like this, like the studios do not believe, or like for them, like to like pay fairly or equitably is like bad business for them. Like that's how they view it. Because yeah, with like Mairghread is saying, with the writers, they have the comparison with the WGA, but there's several other like comparisons, because like with us, like color design, we can directly compare to what other design artists are doing. And that's where we're like, okay, well, obviously our pay is like not up to par. And then also with people who work on streaming or new media shows, that's another form of inequity where like it's the same work, but just because the platform it's airing on is like, the studios have argued like, no, but we pay you less. So yeah.
God, and the last time around they were like, we're not sure if adding ads to things will make money. Like, we know not having ads makes money, but we're not sure if also adding ads will make money. And it's like, did you just hear the shit coming out of your mouth? Anyway, there's a really great book called Drawing the Line, by
Tom Cito.
Tom Cito, yes, sorry. I always want to say Tom Cito, but by Tom Cito, that talks about early unions. Like back in the day, they used to make you pay to work for them, like when animation started. And they would go back to that in a heartbeat if they could.
And also too, going into storyboarding, and looking at your Twitter feed for the Animation Guild, I've seen stories of storyboard artists who were saying that they're basically now doing the work of a key animator. So you know, that is kind of, in one way, it's kind of like putting a lot of work already on a storyboard artist, and now you got to work on not only creating the story and laying out the story visually, but now you got to make sure that everything is on model, and also everything could be in an animatic. That's just more time, and also some of these people who are newly into storyboarding as well as going into revisionist art, they're not really getting adequately paid for the overtime. Get what I'm saying? So that's one of the reasons why we was interested in talking about the Animation Guild, is because we do have mentees who are concerned about quality of life.
There's a tremendous amount of pressure that I think the business puts on young people, but I think also to an extent, and I say this as someone who did it, young people put on themselves to not report overtime. You know, I'm just going to kill myself. I don't want to rock the boat. Like, and that's why the union is so important, so that the union can be the bad guy instead of you feeling like I have to personally use my capital and defend myself by being like, this is an unfair deadline. I can't, you know, be expected to make that. I would always encourage people to speak up for themselves, because even if you're at a bad company or even if your show can't do anything about it, the kind of people that are going to punish you for it aren't people you want to work for anyway. You know, they were going to find something else. So like, don't assume. So many of what I see that happens to writers that's bad is writers assuming they couldn't speak up for themselves, or starts with writers assuming that everything was normal and this is what should happen, you know? So don't assume. If you are having a problem at work, you know, reach out to your supervisor, reach out to your line producer, reach out to the union and say, like, see if there's any recourse, see if there's any way to fix this. Because I feel like there's, you know, the studios, they try and use our dreams against us, that you should be so goddamn happy to board SpongeBob because that's what you grew up with. So just do it and 8 other people's jobs. But that doesn't have to be the reality.
Yeah, I guess I would want to speak to, like, I think definitely with the storyboard artists, it's more pronounced, like what they're experiencing in terms of like job creep. But I think there are several other crafts experiencing it, maybe on some level as well. Like I know with color designers, we just learned like Disney TVA decided now they're going to ship their own like assets, which is actually the job of like a shipping coordinator. So yeah, it does seem like the studios are just trying to like kind of shrink crews and just put more responsibilities like kind of on individuals. And in terms of like overtime, like myself as a supervisor, like my job is, you know, giving out assignments and kind of assessing the schedule. And like I always tell like the artists on my team, like, please, like, here are your assignments and the deadline, but please let me know if you feel like you can't do this in like a 40-hour work week. Because like it's no like shade on them, like if they tell me, because then I can work with the producer and be like, hey, I think we're going to need like freelance help because this is just too much for the team. So yeah, always as a, you know, as an artist or whatever position you're in, like tell your immediate supervisor, like, hey, like this is a little demanding and they'll work with you. Like it's not like you don't have to take it like, oh, this is a bad thing that I can't do this, like, and like secretly be doing overtime. Like don't do that.
Yeah, because like since I'm not from the US, it is a bit of a struggle to do that because we don't have guilds to protect us from these kind of conditions and situations. So for me personally, I've had to log in like a whole bunch of overtime work because I feel like I have to, because there's no one protecting me if I don't do this work. It's all, the blame is all gonna be on one individual, which is me. So, but it took a while since I've been working for like for this studio for about 2 years. The first year I was really just like burning myself out, pushing myself to finish this work even though I know I couldn't handle it. But now I'm like, I'm firmer in like with myself, know myself more, that if I can't do this, I have to tell my supervisor that I can't. Like there's no shame in it.
I would also say, and this is just because I know that this conversation is about people who are at the start of their careers, and especially as a writer, like for me personally, I would encourage anyone at the start of their careers, really start to learn at what hour of the night you're not really working anymore. Like, because you can sit in front of your computer and type until 2 a.m., but I can't really write past 9 p.m. Nothing I'm doing after that is usable. And I think that there's often this feeling, and this is a separate thing, I guess, but like, start to really learn. This business will always pay you for more output, but you have to maintain a certain level of quality. And so really start to get comfortable for yourself of figuring out at what point you're not getting that quality return back, and getting comfortable being like, I've got to put the pencil down and rest, because if you can't use anything, like if nothing you do from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. is good, then you've just squandered your rest time for no work, like, so I would just really encourage you, especially if you start on a freelancing binge where it's like, the more I do the thing, literally, the more money can go into my pocket, to really guard your own rest time, and to really, really start listening to your body and looking at your work and saying critically, like, at what point am I just burning myself out? Because it's not about getting the job done. It's about having a career in this business, and that's about maintaining yourself over years.
So I have a question myself. So do you think that like should value yourself more, like as a person, like in life, or your career? Because like it's always a question I've struggled with. Do I value my career more, or do I value myself?
I say both.
Well, I'm the wrong fucking person to ask about that. I have years of therapy that basically boiled down to, you're not your job, Mairghread. At a certain point, your job won't love you back. Your job doesn't love you back. But if you're making something that you really feel like is artistic and that you value, like, that can be an expression of yourself, and that's great. I would just say that, yeah, no, I can't. I don't have a healthy relationship with this at all. Teri, save them.
Yeah,
I've got nothing.
I come from. I do have like a unique perspective on this, I suppose, because when I mentioned my earlier background, I didn't expect to get into animation. So like, I don't necessarily have this big dream of like, oh, I'm gonna be like whatever, a showrunner or whatever. Like, so my tolerance level of what the studio's asked of me is very low. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna do that. And like, there's been some shows where I've just worked 0 overtime because I'm like, I need my personal time. I'm not giving you any like a 9th hour. Like, even if you pay me for it, I'm not gonna do it. So like, for me, I would immediately say, oh, value yourself. Because yeah, at the end of the day, like, the studios, they don't really view you as a human, say. So you need to view yourself as that, and like really always put yourself first, I think. And you'll still get respected for it, and that doesn't mean like you can't further yourself in your career by handling, yourself that way.
I would say, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I would just say, yeah, it's so weird when it's like, this was your dream, this is your passion, or this is whatever. Like, I would say for me, as someone who this was my dream and this is my passion and this is also my job, it's just really important to remember that like input and rest have to go in for like writing to go out, and so if all you're doing, like, I have to take the time to watch new shows or read new books or learn new things or have experiences, because otherwise you just start scraping the bottom of the well and you just don't have anything new to say.
Well, for me, I would say my limit is like now officially 11 p.m. where I just can't draw anymore. I just stare at the tablet. I mean, no one uses paper anymore. Sorry. I just stare at the tablet like, what is this? But in terms of choosing working fully on your career as well as your life, and also I say, like my family always say, if you die, the people who's going to miss you the most is going to be your family. So just keep that in mind. Another thing too is, yes, working animation for all of us is a dream come true, but it is still, at the end of the day, it's still a labor and still a job. And if you're working at a company and you're not paying for your living expenses adequately, then something's up. So I would say, yes, working in the animation industry is a dream for everyone, but like any job in any industry, just keep in mind the quality of life at that job. And if it's not working, then there is something that needs to be discussed, whether it's through a union or at the job. It's going to be your life. That being said, it's now 1:48 and we're almost there. So let's take a look, Francis, and see if there's any questions.
There are 3 questions right now. So from Lin Jin, concern on networking with recruiters. How often can we connect with them? Because they won't reply to, sometimes they won't reply to messages after you applied. It will take a long time to get results from recruiters. So may I ask some suggestions on that to win more possibility to get the position?
Yeah, so first of all, assume you did not get the job. Like literally, it's especially true with writing or freelance work, like literally until someone hands you a contract to sign that legally binds them to giving you money, you have to assume that that money is not there, that show does not exist, and you did not get that job. Because I'm super anxiety ridden, when I started networking, I would literally set up like, I think I did 2-1 was my rule, which is if I did a meeting with someone and they wanted me to send anything, I would try and send it back right away. And then I would go to my calendar and literally count 2 weeks from that. And if I hadn't heard back from them, I would poke them. And then 1 more week after that, I would poke them again. I wouldn't poke anyone more than twice. After that, just assume it's gone, just assume it's dead. But if you're feeling nervous, like decide for yourself or pick for yourself, like, pick a day on the calendar that says, this is the day I'm going to reply, or I'm going to see if that person is there. And then just mark those 2 spots, whatever they are, a week after, or 2 weeks after, whatever it is, and then just let it go.
Well, yeah, something I think that maybe not is apparent is that like recruiters are one way to kind of maybe get your foot in the door, but the people who are more likely to be making a direct decision on whether you're going to be like hired or not are, or at least in the design department, like the art director, or if there are like supervisors like myself, the color supervisor, because we're more like the ones evaluating the portfolio and like requesting like production, like, oh yes, we want to interview this person. So like, and recruiters can, you know, pass along someone's portfolio then to us. So I wouldn't necessarily just put like all your eggs in a basket with like trying to get a recruiter's attention. Like I would say like, yeah, look up maybe who is like an art director working at the studio and see if, you know, you can find a way to connect with them, I don't know, online or however, that might be more promising. That would be more direct, I think. You're going more to the source of who could hire you.
Definitely. My first writing assistant job I got by talking to the HR, the head of recruiting at Nickelodeon, but my best writing assistant job I got because I knew the line producer in the first job. Most of my writing assistants have come from people who have reached out to me directly, because it's often considered a sign that like, wow, you really want to do this. You actually found me, you know, and I know you and you didn't seem crazy. So great, cool. Let's start talking. So yeah, I think you're right. Just like whatever department you want to be, what show do you like? Who ran that department? Go talk to them.
Well, I see the chat. You're welcome. Okay, what other questions do we have?
Yes, we have from Pearl. Any tips for people outside of the US wanting to relocate nearer to animation studios when starting out?
Well, I don't know if I can't really, since I like live here, like this is where I grew up, I don't really have advice with relocating, but I will just mention that I know there are studios that are willing to hire people from outside of the US. On my current production, we actually had someone working as a background designer from Germany. And they were I will say they were hired under different terms that were probably not as great as if they were here and like in the union. That's the one caveat. You know, unions are restricted to like that country, but the studios themselves have no issues hiring outside the country.
The only thing I can think of, because obviously I live in America, but I moved from New York to LA. If you are going to move here and you don't have a job, especially in the LA area, the thing I would recommend most is get out Google Maps, find the 3 studios you're most interested in working at, and triangulate where the middle of that triangle is, and that's where you should live, because traffic is a freaking nightmare here. And I've met people who are like, I'm going to work in animation, and they move to, you know, like West Hollywood or downtown, and it's like, all right, well, you know, your commute's going to suck forever. So that's the only advice I have is if you do move out here, it's also worth it to just take a plane ride out of here, like go to the studio and be like, okay, what does the commute actually look like?
Now, I have a question myself. So I know with the Animation Guild, you guys are located in the Los Angeles area. Are they also located in Atlanta or in New York? Because I know Atlanta also has animation companies, and New York has small.
We have an organizer in Atlanta. I don't think we have any studios in Atlanta yet, but we did just start covering studios in New York. So we are not the 839 coverage is not guaranteed outside of, honestly, it's not guaranteed inside of LA County, but technically our jurisdiction is LA County, but we are starting to represent studios and looking to represent studios outside of that jurisdiction to spread across America.
Well, yeah, and I think maybe it's worth elaborating that like the union, like I think we would love to just go into a studio and be like, hey, like you need to be union production, like to everywhere, you know, in the country. But, you know, the way all this works is that it ultimately has to start with the workers there at the studio deciding like, hey, like we need to get union coverage. And so that's kind of why, like, we're not, TAG is currently not representing anyone in Atlanta, but we're working on it. Like there's, I know that there's artists or, you know, people there working at animation studios and they want to get coverage, but it is a process of like, having to, talk to your coworkers about it and getting everyone comfortable and on board that like, yes, we're all going to like, join together and ask to be union.
It's the thing about being a signatory, which means that the studios have quote unquote voluntarily decided that like everyone at this studio will be union, and so the studio itself signs a contract. If the studio hasn't signed the contract, we essentially can't, we as a union cannot make them become union. Essentially they have to decide out of the goodness of their hearts, normally because their employees made a huge fucking deal about it, that they would like to voluntarily sign a contract, and then the union can start enforcing it. So when you see like Titmouse in New York, or I think it's Titmouse in New York organized, like
yep.
On paper, Titmouse in New York was like, look, we don't have to be covered by 839, but we've decided we really want to. In reality, the workers at that studio were furious and did a lot of organizing work and put a lot of pressure on the studio. Basically, we don't want to keep working here if you don't take coverage. And that's how that happens.
So I have a question to ask you. And this is more like an argument because I have friends, not just in animation or art world, but outside of art, who make this argument that with the unions, technically there shouldn't be a need for unions, because if you work hard enough and if the management is likes what you do, then you should be fine. How would you? I know I have weird friends, so
I work union and non-union. I've worked union and non-union. I also write comics, which is a completely non-unionized industry. So I will tell you, even when you work non-union, if there is a union in that industry, it betters everyone's life. And being part of that union makes your life even better. Like, industries that don't have any union presidents are the most exploitive. There is literally a charity in comic books solely designed to stop older comic book writers from dying of hunger. Like people who are huge names. The companies, it's a great deal for them if they can pay you as little as humanly possible and keep making money off your work and continue to not pay you. Like you are not, they don't think about throwing away people any more than you would think about throwing away a chair. And even if your individual boss is a good person, so many of these companies are multinational corporations that are just chasing quarter to quarter numbers, like your boss your direct supervisor probably has very little or almost no power to help you, even if they wanted to. The idea that companies will pay you because you're good is an utter fallacy. I've literally had more than one executive tell me to my face, we pay people less because we know that people want to work in this business. And so we can't. Don't you want to write Batman? Hasn't everyone always wanted to write Batman? Like I said, back in the 20s when this got started, they used to make you pay to work for them for a while. Like, they're not your fucking friend. They're nothing like your friend. And they will pay you as little as the law requires them to pay you, or as the union requires them to pay you.
Yeah, I having worked on non-union shows myself, my performance has been the same whether it's a union job or not, but definitely what the benefits are starkly different. I think some things that people aren't aware of, at least tag benefits, are if you get let go from a production and that the studio doesn't ask you back within a certain amount of time, you actually get what we call dismissal pay, but it's the same as severance pay. And that's no way has that ever happened, at least to me, on a non-union production. Once you're let go, there's no more money coming to you. Whereas if you were on a union production, no, they actually do have to pay you something. And there's other forms of like benefits that, yeah, there's just, well, like pension, like earning a pension, like a non-union productions just have not offered that at all. So yeah, to me, it doesn't matter your job performance. What matters is whether the studio is covered by the union or not.
Because it all derives into this secret mentality, at least in the writing community, of like, I'm gonna be hot shit. And like, maybe you are, but you're never gonna be hot shit forever. And who's gonna watch your back when you're just good at your job, you know? Or when you're not hot shit? Like, who's gonna be there when you've got a great idea, but you were too stupid as a 20-year-old kid to know that that paragraph in that contract at the back said that you don't get to keep any of the money you make for them? Like, who watches you then? Like, and I know it hurts a lot of writers, and myself included, to think that like someday you're not going to be the it kid anymore, or you're going to piss off the wrong studio exec. But if you have a union and you have protection, you know, you're not at the mercy of making whoever hired you, you know, of doing everything they want you to do, of taking a level of abuse that you don't need to take, of just in case this doesn't work out.
And I see it is 2 minutes overtime. So we do appreciate that you guys are here. We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Princess, what do you think? Do you think this is we're
I
good?
mean, is it okay? Because like we have last 2 more questions.
Yeah,
And
sure. I'm fine.
Yeah, just last 2. So
is it okay, Teri? No.
Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, okay.
So,
well,
yeah. So it's from Shayla. I think this is more directed for Mairghread. What advice do you have for someone who comes from another background or profession with no credits in writing, if they want to pitch stories or show an idea?
Yeah, you gotta, there's 2 things you gotta prove to me. One is that you can write, and 2 is that you can write on a deadline. So I wanna see good samples. I wanna see samples in your voice. I wanna see samples that in someone else's voice. Animation is pretty forgiving. So like, even if you wrote for the like a sample of the Spider-Man show 2 shows back, we all kind of know what Peter Parker's supposed to sound like, so you're fine. The other thing I really want to see, like I said, is I want to see that you can write on a deadline and you can consistently produce. So anything you can do to like I don't care if you're just posting weekly on your fanfic, but like a comic, a short story, you did 1-act play. There's always a 1-act play festival going on somewhere. Anything you can do that proves to me that you didn't just write these 2 samples over 6 years, but you have kept writing and are still turning in stuff and still writing stuff, is beneficial.
Okay, and for our last question from Freddie Malenda, I currently live in Virginia. Are there any opportunities to work remotely for studios based in California?
Yeah, let's say. Yeah, like I said a little earlier, I mean, studios are willing to hire people like wherever they're located. And I currently have coworkers who are living like in Atlanta and like Massachusetts and, you know, other parts of the country. I guess the challenge is just like trying to kind of network all kind of remotely. So yeah, you can definitely get the job. It's just getting it. That might be a little
My
challenge.
assistant was in Texas and actually moved out here after she was hired. But she was living in Texas when we hired her.
Mm-hmm.
And look at that. It is
it is. We're done. We have answered all the questions.
You did. And you know, as for the fan fiction writers out there, as a semi-formal fan fiction writer back in the early aughts, you guys are cool. We're still cool. But We are good. So thank you, Mairghread, and thank you, Teri, and thank you, Frances, and thank you, everyone and who are was listening to us today. And apologize about the technical difficulties. And so, just one last question though for our panelist guests. What is that one quick tip for an aspiring person who wants to get in the industry? What is that one tip you will give to our audience? Something like really small.
You're not going to get the job at the first interaction. It shouldn't be about getting the job at the first interaction. I really mean it when I say all you're trying to get out of that first interaction is for you to walk away and that person to be like, they seem decent. That's it. Give yourself that grace. Give yourself that bar.
What about you, Teri?
Yeah. Because I came from such a mixed experience. Yeah, I mean, it's similar, like, it's I guess a process getting in, because yeah, like it might, necessitate like a couple interactions before like someone is like, oh, okay, yeah, I can trust this person with, this responsibility of this position. And I would say like not to just focus on like the craft part of whatever it is you want to do, but also just the aspect of just socializing and connecting with people, like because that's really a part of it, and that would be part of really any job as well, is just being a normal, nice person, I guess.
Yeah, like I do think that connecting more in, I guess, in a non-professional way with other artists or producers or writers, seem like the more genuine you are, the more like they would want to reach out to you.
Yeah.
And for me, I say reach out for your dreams, but also reach out to your fam as well. And you cannot do this alone. You have to reach out to help. So that is it, guys. So thank you everyone once again for being with us this afternoon. And thank you very much, Mairghread and Teri. And Frances, do you want to lead us out?
Yes, so yeah, again, like thank you guys for attending the panel and taking time off of your lives or your day today. So I think that's it for our panel. So like close on the union bound panel, my very first moderator panel.
And very first host. So
yes.
Congratulations. All right. See you later. That's all, folks.
Bye. Thank you, Teri. Thank you, Mairghread.
Yep, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.